cue in, Sammy, if you could just tell us, for example, what you told us about your memory of the particular day. You could just introduce the fact that there was a disaster on, but in your own time, in your own way.
Well, sure. We'll try it, and if you want any changes or a different approach, we can run it over again. I presume you have time to spare.
1,000 times, it doesn't matter.
All right. Tell me when you're ready to go.
Anytime Tom always record.
Coal Island owes its name and its fame to coal mining. But I wonder if people today realise the cost of the coal in terms of human life and human suffering. Like many other industries, coal mining was certainly not without its tragedy. And it's exactly 71 years and 6 months since I, at the age of 11, was sitting in Ballykelly Public Elementary School. And on that morning, it was to turn out to be a day that I and the other pupils there would remember for the rest of our lives. Round about 11 o'clock, the floor under our feet shuddered, and a moment later there came a long, rumbling, thunderous explosion, the like of what we'd never heard before. Now, we were used hearing blasts coming from the clay pit, the 100-foot shaft just opposite the Mission Hall at Cranbrook Crossroads. But this was like nothing we'd ever heard before. Anyway, lessons continued, and some time later, a young lad called Alexander Williamson came in from the junior room and said to the head teacher, Miss Oliver, "Please, Miss, Uncle John's killed." Now, I still remember the collective gasp of dismay and disbelief that went round the room. We were totally unused to sudden death or tragedy in those days, and this was something that we just couldn't take in. However, when we got out at lunchtime, even more bad news awaited, because we'd heard that Jimmy Templeton of Newton Kelly had also been killed. Now, in later years, when I came back here to work, the chairman, Jim Canning, encouraged me to do a project in talking to people who were the senior citizens then. And one of the first two people I talked to was Richie Templeton, son of a man that was killed, and Alex Simpson, another miner who was one of the first to risk his life to go down under awful circumstances in an attempt to rescue his workmates. And I would like to read you now, in Alex's own words, that interview. I was at the Ballykelly pit when the accident happened in which James Templeton and Willie John Williamson were killed. The pit was over 100 feet deep. The pit had flooded from old workings overnight and had to be drained. Then Jimmy and Willie John went down to inspect the tunnels before work could start. Shortly after, a massive gas explosion blew the water up through the 100-foot shaft, right to the top. Richie Templeton and I ran and got flash lamps from Mrs. Field's shop on the roadside. In those days we only had naked flame carbide lamps fixed to our caps, and we went down to look for them. We thought we would find them sheltered and safe, but the roads down there were blocked with timber and stuff. We made our way to a turn-off and came to the air shaft. We heard moaning and found Jimmy Templeton, Richie's father. We sent back up for help, and Willie John Cardwell came down. Jimmy Templeton had been struck on the head by a steel girder. There was a smell of burning flesh. He was still alive, and we carried him out to the road end and got him up to the surface in the cage, but he was dead when we got there. Other men came down and went to look for Willie John Williamson, who was a cousin of mine. But when they found him, he was dead. Willie John Cardwell, who had been helping in the rescue, was by now suffering from the effects of gas that was black damp, and Dr. Garvin had to give him artificial respiration. We had to get brandy for some of the others. That finished that pit. We opened another one just beside it, but when we opened it, the gas came out, and Jimmy Williamson and Jimmy Skelton nearly got burned with it. I remember going down that same shaft. We were only in a few feet. Now, pit gas collects at the top of the tunnel. You have to check holes in the roof because it rises and gathers in those holes. William James Cardwell and I sat down for a smoke. We lit a candle and he noticed that gas above our heads was burning. We put the candle out and blocked up the hole where the gas was coming through from an old road that was running alongside. The old road had been full of water and we had drawn some out, which allowed the gas to collect. With a gliny lamp, you could watch the gas burning around the lamp. It burned with a wicked blue flame. If it was the gas known to miners as black damp, it would put the fire out, but it would also make you fall asleep. But the other type of gas would go off with a bang. I should mention at this stage that there are two types of methane gas found in a coal pit and a clay pit. The first type is known as white damp, and it consists mainly of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. That's the one that is flammable and very highly explosive. The other type, black damp, is carbon dioxide with a mixture of nitrogen, and it simply pushes the oxygen out of the lungs and blood and suffocates.
Very good.
That's you now, Sammy.
Okay. This is the steam engine that for 66 years powered 260 looms and practically every other machine in the factory. They were known as the prime movers because every movement of every machine in the building originated here. The steam to power the engine came from two Lancashire boilers located in the adjoining building. They were 9 feet in diameter by 30 feet long, and they required actually 3/4 of a ton of coal a day, 1,500 weight. That was shoveled manually by the fireman during the day and by the night watchman who kept the low heat going through the night. On Friday nights, when the boilers cooled, the furnaces were raked out and the fire set ready for lighting at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night in order to have a head of steam built up ready to start the engine on Monday mornings. The steam came through the steam path from the boilers and into the cylinder. This is the high pressure cylinder. It operated the piston there and then it was carried to the low pressure cylinder. Now, yeah.
You want to get a few overall stuff as well off the whole thing, you know, just how powerful it is.
Oh, and the piston rod to the connecting rod to the crankshaft, which turned at 9 foot diameter, 9 ton weight driving wheel. From the driving wheel, the power was transmitted along those 6 cotton driving ropes